Audiobook Club with Steve Phillips and Matthew Layton.
On this episode of Audiobook Club, my co-presenter's origin story.
The year is 1726, and St James's Palace in London is abuzz with the news. Bewigged heads tilt towards each other behind paper fans. The murmur zigzags from maidservant to courtier to footman. Soon, everyone knows. The King of England has found a boy raised by wolves in the German forest, stuffed him in a three-piece suit and stockings, and brought him to court.
Audiobook Club with Steve Phillips and Matthew Layton.
Hello and welcome to Audiobook Club, the podcast about audiobooks whose presenters both have bewigged heads. This week, we got a special podcast for you this week because we're reviewing Mavericks, life stories and lessons from history's most extraordinary misfits, and we've got a bit of a party going on here. So first of all, bring in my co-presenter as ever. Matt, how are you?
Hello there, Steve. I don't envy you the job of having to marshal this one. A lot of voices involved. But I think the other two people are much nicer than I am, so it's going to go okay.
Well, due to the budgetary constraints, you see what position I'm sitting in with my headphones right now. We also, and as what we really love to do is to really get inside the book, which means we always ask for opportunities to speak to the authors. And, obviously Michelle Obama was a bit of a long shot, but we are delighted to welcome the author of Mavericks, Life Stories and Lessons of History's Most Extraordinary Misfits, who both wrote and performed the book. It's Jenny Draper. Hello, Jenny.
Hello. Glad to be a couple steps down from Michelle Obama for you.
No, I wouldn't even say a couple. Much closer than that. So thank you so much for making the time today to talk to us. Oh, no, not at all. And actually, a bit of a backstory, which I might mention to you off air just now, but it was actually my brother who recommended your book and said, Jenny Draper's got a book out. Do you remember we watched a few of her videos a little while back? He's a massive fan of yours. So my brother Ian, I brought him along because he's got a list of questions he's been sending me throughout the day. So if that's okay, if he can interrogate you, but ask you a few questions as well, that'd be amazing. So hello, Ian. Hello. Okay, fantastic. We're both sharing headphones. It's a bit of a weird position at the moment. So, so the book, Mavericks, Life Stories and Lessons from History's Most Extraordinary Misfits. Jenny, how did the book come about?
So I'm a tour guide. I'm a London tour guide by profession. And a couple of years ago, you have to study for your Blue Badge qualification, which is your tour guiding qualification. And they teach you how to basically do the basics. So you learn Westminster Abbey, the Tower of London, St Paul's, all the really big tourist stuff. But while you're doing that, you end up coming across all these weird stories that you can't really put anywhere in a tour because there's not necessarily anything to see. It might be a story about someone who didn't live in central London, didn't live near anything else, so you can't walk to it. So I would never get to tell these incredible stories that I'd found. So Mavericks is my attempt at just mashing them all together and going, look at this weirdo, look at this one, look at this person. Isn't that amazing? And finally getting them out of my brain.
Well, yes, and certainly it's been for our benefit as well. So we're talking about is it 24? Is it 24 characters you've got in this book? Yeah, so I sat right
That's
behind you there, and all of them I'd never heard of, certainly. And Matt, when you've been listening to it, we both learned a lot here, didn't we?
We did. I'd heard of one of the people in this book. I'd heard of Paul Robeson before. I thought it was a very unusual and interesting choice. So I enjoyed that bit and learned more about him from the book. But there's an interesting thing going on here, Jenny, which is also that everybody. The thing that you've done is you've wrestled the history conch from white middle-aged men, really, haven't you? In terms of, it's normally Peter
podcast, to be fair.
Peter, yes, indeed. Peter Ackroyd or Simon Sharma. I mean, we listened to quite a bit of Ben McIntyre here, but you come at it from a different angle, don't you, or a different place?
Peter Ackroyd has done some pretty diverse stuff in his time. But I mean, I wanted to make sure all the stories were as different as possible. I didn't want to do two people that were kind of the same. So I did try and pick people who'd had very different life stories. I wanted to pick people not just from different races and sexualities and abilities, but also like I wanted someone from every country in the UK. My publisher told me I must have some Americans in there. I've got Africans, there's a couple of French, a couple of Germans. So yeah, I wanted lots of different kind of stories, which is really what I was going for, and that does mean you end up doing queer history and black history and disabled history and working class history, but there are like reasons for picking it that aren't purely box ticking exercises.
It's we had Ben Aronovich on who wrote the Rivers of London series of books, and I had a lovely question for him about, he's a shining example of leading by diversity and blah 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 blah, and he said no, it's just London. Just look around me and those are the people that I see.
Yeah, you definitely couldn't set a book in London with just white people. That would be very strange.
It would be. Now, listen, you are the first author we've had on who doesn't have a Wikipedia page. So I've had to do proper research for a change.
I guess I mean I could take that as an insult.
No, it's cutting. It means you're cutting edge. I feel very finger on the pulse.
Is what you're saying?
Yeah. No, I feel like we're ahead of the curve here. I think this is good news.
I mean, nobody ever gets famous doing history. That's I've sort of accepted that.
It's not about it
until now.
I don't think we're going to help, but. So funnily enough, my research extends about as far as you've written one book and you're a blue. I knew what a blue badge was because I too am a history anorak. On my shelf here, I'm just looking over my monitor and I can see a book on abandoned tube stations, which is about my level, really. But apart from the fact that you're a blue badge guide and that you've written one book, how did you study history at university, or have you just come to it because of the job?
No. So I actually studied something. I studied French at uni, which I've never got any use out of. But while I was at uni in York, and I knew I needed a student job. And in York, there are really only two student jobs that you can do. Number one is you could work in a pub, which I knew I wouldn't be very good at because I don't hear very well. And number two is you can be a Viking. So York has loads of Viking history, and there's this big Viking museum where all the staff are dressed as Vikings.
Oh, is this the Jorvik Centre,
This
Jenny?
is the Jorvik Centre.
Yeah.
So I was Shield Maiden Lathgerta.
As far as we're concerned, you still are.
And I worked there for 3 or 4 years, I think, and I've worked in heritage ever since. So after that I moved to the Museum of London. I did their tours. I've worked at the London Charterhouse. I did their tours, and in 2021 I got my blue badge, which means now I'm a freelance tour guide and I can go wherever I like.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, this sort of just brings us back. So we like to do this sort of 3-step process where we talk about the author, and we and thank you so much, Jenny, for doing that. Matt, I don't know if your research, anything Jenny might have missed out from her own life that you've included in your research. I don't think there's anything, is there?
No, I think she did a much better job than I did.
I was curious to see what you were gonna dig up about me.
Yes. But what's your list like?
Well, look, I think we've got Ian on that, so we only need one stalker on at one time, don't we? I think.
Hi. But it brings us round to the book. So for anyone who's maybe just joining the podcast at this particular moment, so essentially, the book takes 24 fascinating stories of little-known underdogs and mavericks and trailblazers and oddballs and just things you never would have heard about at all in history. It was just real compelling listening, and I don't know about you, Matt, but I read this book in a way I don't normally listen to audiobooks, which is it was something I dipped in and dipped out of, and took it, because it's one person per chapter, isn't it, Jenny?
I'm really happy you said that, actually. Back in the sort of the 70s, 80s, and even into the 90s, there was this kind of tradition of books called eccentrics. So you would get an eccentrics book for your local area. You would get, American eccentrics or Essex eccentrics or Hertfordshire eccentrics, and it would be just weirdos who lived where you are, and they would be kind of. This is a kind of book that we don't need really anymore, but they would be toilet books. And you're in your bathroom.
I was so frightened. I do have the word toilet book written down here, and I just didn't know whether you would find that an insult.
I mean, that's what it is. It's a book you can dip into and out of. You don't need to. There's no grand overarching narrative. You can just be in there for 5 minutes, which is a kind of book that we don't use very much anymore because now we all read our phones on the toilet instead. But it used to be a whole genre.
We talked about this last week, where we actually went through the chapter list, and just depending on how you were using the toilet at that particular time, you could which character you
no
I might start getting
stop
offended.
It listen, I
with the acknowledgements, because that's quite a short one.
I'm reining us back in, Steve, as you know. I mean, what I like is there is certainly some rigor in the way this book is written, and again, sometimes it's not necessarily the person at the title of the chapter who is the most interesting part of the story. I wanted to play you a clip which stood out for me, which is the best potted history of smallpox I've ever heard.
Smallpox has been around in Europe since the medieval period. But in the 17th century, it kicks up a gear. London basically has constant endemic smallpox from 1650, with particularly bad episodes every 2 to 4 years. The disease starts as a kind of flu, with headaches and a fever, followed by the beginnings of a red rash. This very rapidly blossoms into pustules covering your face, neck, chest, and spreading down your limbs. These pustules can get so big that they might not only make you unrecognisable, but they can even suffocate you. After about a week, they mature, turning into hard, round lumps. When they start to burst, they smell terrible, but if you can survive them bursting, you have a good chance of survival. They'll start to scab up and flake away, leaving behind white scars.
I love that. It's such a wonderful description. And it actually allows us to segue into talking about how the book is performed. And it's definitely... You're a trustworthy voice, Jenny. There is certainly also an element of showbiz and performance in what you do and the way you present it. And there's a warmth to your voice. Thank you, as someone who is vision impaired and can't really do print books anymore. Thank you for taking the time to record the audiobook. We've heard that it's a bit of a faff. How was it for you?
I really enjoyed it, actually. I mean, maybe if the book was longer, it would have been more of a faff, but it's pretty slim. So it was 2.5 days of just solidly reading out a PDF. I had an incredible audio technician called Neo who had this preternatural hearing, could sense I was going to fluff a take before I fluffed it, could hear a car backing up in Lewisham ruining the take. He would, sometimes Neo would say, "Oh, stop," and I'd be like, "What's happened?" And he goes, "I can hear something." Yeah, it was brilliant and really, really good. And we just read the whole thing out, start to finish. Had a great time. Listening to sections of it back now. This is actually I've not listened to it back since I read it. And and I forgot how slow I talk in it. You sort of get into that habit because if you don't leave pauses and you fluff something, you're going to have to go back further. So you get into the habit of every time there's a comma, taking a breath so that you can cut it there if you fluff the next 3 words.
I thought this was it was a massive bonus, actually, your delivery style, because it may have felt unnaturally slow to you potentially, but it was completely the right speed. It made the text so accessible. It really kind of brought it to life because you didn't leave anyone behind, if you know what I mean. Like you could easily pick up where you were in the story. You could understand what was going on.
Yeah. I mean, a slower pace definitely makes sense in an audiobook format that doesn't in my own natural sort of real life speech, and especially not when I'm doing TikToks. I can't talk that. I can't talk that slow.
It's very shipping forecast radio 4 slow, which is about the right, which is what you want for an audiobook, isn't it? Yeah.
There's a touch of the ringmaster to it. In fact, if I were talking to my daughters, I would say you used your big girl outdoor voice. It's very much
tour guiding voice.
Yeah, that's kind of what I mean. Do you think that had an influence on the way you did it?
It's a Viking voice. I've got 30 school kids and a sword, and I need them to shut up and listen to me. So, hello, everybody!
But it's I mean, you often... So, as Steve and I often discuss, the little yellow sticker on the front of an audiobook that says read by the author isn't always a good idea. There are a lot of people, and you see them go into their audiobook studio, and there's always a picture on their Instagram of like one of those recipe book stands and a cup of tea going, I'm in to record my audiobook. And then you hear nothing.
A whole genre of Instagram posts.
Yeah, and then... and what?
I was a walking cliche.
No. The reason you've stuffed up on that is because they suddenly go quiet after that because they found it isn't as easy as they thought it was. And also often you don't get the... we have a line in the sand on this podcast, and the book is either narrated, but if it's a good one, we say if it's well delivered, we say it's performed. And I think there is an element of performance in your narration style, isn't there?
Oh yeah, absolutely. A tour is just a performance. It's not a coincidence that a lot of tour guides are actors.
Yeah, fair enough.
We were watching the Cockney Musicals video the other night, Matt, and that was definitely a performance. Especially obviously you can't do the Cockney jigging now. We can't really obviously doesn't really express itself over the podcast, but very, very well done on that.
Done.
Yes, just a natural. Have a banana. Oh, yeah.
And how did you find recording the audiobook compared to filming one of your YouTube videos?
I do feel like doing the videos gave me like relevant experience, even though I've not filmed an audiobook before. I've sat in front of a mic plenty before, and reading out of an auto cue is not that different to reading off a Kindle with a PDF of your book on it. So really the only difference is that I had an audio tech for the audiobook and a real studio rather than just my living room. So it felt a little bit more professional in that way. And I'm very much an amateur when it comes to audio production. So it was good to have a proper professional eye or an ear on it. But yeah, I think it was quite similar.
Yeah, it's really. I've got a list of. Well, it might be a good time for you to take into a couple more of your questions, if that's okay, Jenny. If you're having to take some questions from the audience here, if that's all right.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, go on.
They're more about the book and the writing process and what your process was about choosing the characters you wrote about. And was it was there a common thread of personality that appealed to these people, or was it? Did you want to purposefully choose people who were different from each other?
So I've actually only sort of realised this since doing the book tour, like since after the book was launched and people have asked me this question, because I thought I'd just picked it by going through my rather extensive notes and going, yeah, that's interesting, that's interesting, that's interesting. So yes, I did want people who were quite different, but what I've realised since the book's come out is that they do all kind of they had to kind of be likeable as well, in a way. Like, none of them are saints, and some of them have done some pretty awful things, but I had to kind of like them. Like, Mavericks is not it's a morally neutral word, right? You could have an evil maverick, you could have someone who uses their weirdness for bad. So, for example, one of the chapters is about a lady called Sabrina Sidney, who was the subject of a bizarre child-raising experiment in the 18th century. And originally, the subject of the chapter was going to be the person who did the experiment, a gentleman called Thomas Day. Every version of this story I've ever read has been from Thomas Day's perspective, because he was well-connected, he was wealthy, so he's the one that people are writing about at the time. But as I was writing it, I was like, I can't stand this guy. He's awful. What he does to her is horrific. And so I sort of went in and did a big find and replace, swapped out all the, swapped all the active sentences round. I was like, this is Sabrina's chapter now. It's got to be hers. She's much more likeable.
Can I just ask, do you have a particular favourite from the 24 characters you chose in this book?
I mean, I think she might be my favourite, Sabrina Sidney.
Yeah.
It's such a wild story, and there's nothing else really like it. So basically, she was an orphan in the 18th century. And one day a guy turns up at the orphanage, supposedly looking for a maid for his friend, but actually looking for a girl he can train to be the perfect wife. And his idea of training her is like, he wants to inure her to fear. So he sticks pins in her, he fires unloaded guns at her skirts, he makes her stand up to her neck in a lake. It's absolutely bizarre. Even his friends were dropping him over this, going, this is weird. Why have you brought an orphan home? Yeah, there was obviously, like I say, he was wealthy, so he could get away with a lot. But they were all kind of side-eyeing him about this. And one of them did write him a letter being like, this is really strange and you have to stop. And her story inspired novels. Fanny Burney wrote a story that was sort of thinly veiled on her. Anthony Trollope wrote about her. Henry James, and she turned out all right in the end. She lived a long time. She became quite a wealthy lady, but it's a really weird story. And I think she might be my favourite. I have a bit of a soft spot for her.
I think we've probably all got a favourite from this book, haven't we? I mean, mine was, I think, Ira Aldridge. That was amazing. That story, real
great.
Sort of against all the odds, and just. I do like the way you didn't just say, chapter 1, chapter 2. You announce the character and then what they teach us during the course of the story, which is a really lovely way to open each chapter. Another favourite. The Rebecca riots. That was nuts. Yeah. What the? I mean, these guys really needed a balaclava, didn't they? They probably weren't around that sort of time. They just go around in bonnets and dresses and things. But that was if you haven't read it yet, I don't want to spoil anything, of course. But the Rebecca rioters, that's a brilliant story. Just taking really wacky action for something so serious, isn't it?
Yeah. So rioting, but dressed in their wives' clothes. The thing is, riots about toll booths back then were pretty common. It's just their particular costumes that were strange, and nobody's done a proper popular history of the Rebecca rioters for ages. No. The book I was working off, I think, was from the 70s. So I mean, I think they were quite well known at one point, and just the story has sort of fallen out of fashion, perhaps. But obviously in the part of Wales that they're from, they are still very much remembered. And yeah, it's a great story.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
So did you spend a lot of time in libraries, or do you spend a lot of time in libraries? I'm getting, because the research is clearly there. There is. I can see you being sort of cloistered away in a book tower somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I did read a lot of books for it. Unfortunately, while I was working on the book, the British Library suffered a gigantic cyber attack, which put its entire IT system out of commission. I think they must have had to, sort of reading between the lines in their newsletters, I think they've had to rebuild their entire IT system from scratch. I think they're still not 100%. Fully operational years later. So I was really, that really stuck me in a way because, they have everything. So I was really reliant on a lot of digitization services online. The Internet Archive was fantastic. There's loads of out of copyright stuff on the Internet Archive. For example, with Sabrina Sidney, there was a bloke at the time who, like, most of what we know about her comes from his memoir, and that's on there. A lot of Ellen and William Craft, who escaped slavery in the US, they wrote a biography, and that's on there. So loads of the out-of-copyright stuff is amazingly available online these days.
So it sounds like you might have some stories left over. Is your next opus going to be part 2, or are you going to do something different?
I would like to do something different. I can't really say any more than that.
No, okay, something's cooking.
It's not that it's a secret. It's just that it's so early that it's probably not going to be, whatever I tell you is probably not going to be correct by the time it finishes. So I'll just say I would like to write something else, but not necessarily Mavericks 2. I don't think I used all the good ones in the first one, like B-sides, and these guys are all already B-sides.
Yeah. So basically, I think I think it's one of those, maybe potentially a book maybe in sort of 10 years' time when the pot's filled up with more people you've discovered, maybe, something you can revisit later on. Yeah, you don't want to keep constantly. Yeah, exactly. I guess there's been a lot of times.
And when I've developed a bit of a different voice as well. Like, so for example, one of the people on the shortlist was a group of 3 women called Edie and the Boys, who were suffragettes, queer polyamorous suffragettes in the 1910s, which is a great story, very unusual, but was really similar to one that's already in the book, which was that of Radcliffe Hall, who was a lesbian writer in the 1920s. If enough time passes that I would end up writing about them completely differently to how I wrote about Radcliffe Hall, like my own voice has just changed so much, like my own vocabulary has changed, then maybe.
Who knows?
But I think coming immediately out on the heels with Mavericks 2, I don't think necessarily would work.
No, I think Ian's got one more question, and then I've got one more for you about what's coming up for you next. But go for Ian.
Yeah, sure. Something that struck me was I was trying to think about what is common about what makes a person a maverick, and I think initially they all seem to be outsiders in their own world. And what do you think sets them apart from ordinary people?
It's just something about the story that grabs me. I can't exactly say what it is, but a juicy story, perhaps. I mean, you can be outside the norm and be extremely boring.
Yes.
You can go and live in a I don't know what would be boring, and still outside the norm. I guess if you just sort of lived in a tree your whole life, and you were kind of normal, but you just lived in a tree, and you never had any drama with anybody. No one ever tried to evict you from the tree. You were always fine. That might not be a great story. So it does have to be something that's a little bit juicy.
You need beef.
You need beef, man. You need tea and beef. Yeah.
Bovril. That was one of my favourites. Was Noor Inayat Khan.
That's my number one too. I have to say,
the special operations executive. Because there's partly a personal connection. We had a great aunt who was in the SOE, and we have no idea what she did.
Oh no!
But, which is a shame. But what struck me about that story was. in sense of the bravery that she undertook, it did remind me of Josephine Baker as well, and what she did with the work that she did with the French Resistance. Being quite a well-known person, yet she was carrying secrets for the French Resistance, which was quite an incredibly brave thing to do.
Yeah, I'm not sure I could have done it. I'm not very brave. But then again, I think probably Noor didn't sort of strike anyone when she sort of started in the RAF. I don't think she would have necessarily struck someone as the type to be so steel-spined. She was a children's author. She couldn't tell a lie. She seems to be very sweet. There's this story about she was her training for the SOE, and she's plonked in a strange town and she has to find her way around, and a policeman comes up to her and it's like, what are you doing? And she goes, oh, I'm training to be a spy. She just tells him.
The perfect cover story until that moment. So Jenny, thank you you've given up your time to talk to us today. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming on. Just a couple of questions. When this next venture becomes more fully formed and you're able to talk about it, would you come back and tell us a little bit more about it?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Absolutely.
Oh, fantastic. And of course you've given up your time, and so it's only fair to ask you, so you've got private tours going on. How can people view your stuff, book you up? What's the deal with you? How can people get hold of you?
That's right. So you can find videos about London history on TikTok and YouTube. I am J Draper London, and I am absolutely also a private tour guide. You can have me take you around London yourself, and that is at jdraper.co.uk. Perfect.
And seriously, if you've not come across Jenny's YouTube channel yet, that'll be your whole evening. It is compelling viewing. I'm at a good point actually, because I've got so many more to go, so I've still got the right to go on. So so thank you for producing all you produce, and it's you're always learning something, and really, really appreciate it. Matt, any final words to Jenny before we set her free?
Just a big thank you, really, Jenny, and also your consumption of audiobooks. Is there an audiobook that you could recommend for us, or is there a book that you'd like to see if the audiobook is any good?
Audiobook recommendation. I really liked Doppelganger by Naomi Klein. I don't know if you've...
She's No Logo, isn't she? She is
No Logo. Yeah, absolutely. Doppelganger is absolutely fascinating. Basically, there's another public figure called Naomi Wolf, who everyone mixes Naomi Klein up with, and but has very different views from Naomi Klein. So every time Naomi Wolf says something controversial, Naomi Klein gets all these tweets like, "How could you have said that?" And it's about sort of recognizing yourself in the other and how that relates to the political situation in the 2020s.
It sounds very grown up. Might be a bit hard for us.
No, it's on the list.
I should have given you a joke book, shouldn't I?
Something similar. What is the audio equivalent of written in crayon? One of those, basically. We should do an audio book, pop-up book, shouldn't we, Steve? Let's see if we can find one of those.
How does an audio pop-up book work? Anyway, that's probably a conversation for another day, really, isn't it?
I think so. I think we might have outstayed our welcome, Steve.
I think we might have done. So, actually, I don't know if you're interested. Well, it's a bit historical here, Jenny, but next week's book is Becoming Sherlock, The Red Circle. And this is a new Sherlock Holmes story by Sarah J. Naughton and Anthony Horowitz. It's book 1 in the Becoming Sherlock series, narrated by Alfred Enoch. It's been out for a couple of months now. It comes in at 9 hours and 17 minutes out of Storytel Original, the publisher. That is next week's audio.
Hold on. Can I sell this a little better than that, please, Steve? Because I've read it already, and I think it might be aligned with your tastes. It's Jenny, it's certainly in the middle of my Venn diagram, in that it's a Sherlock Holmes book, which is London and historical. Mm-hmm. Anthony Horowitz, who is the only person to have been asked by both the Fleming estate and the Conan Doyle estate to write books, and
trivia.
And he brilliant. And again, almost in the centre of my target, it's set in a dystopian future. Post a fuel crisis, London is again fuelled by coal and lit by gas lights, but there also manages to be a plane crash. So I think you would probably enjoy that one as well, Jenny. It's not too far from your... Fun. Yeah, it's great, by the way. Just to maybe make next week's show redundant. It's brilliant.
Yeah. Nice one. Nicely reviewed. Okay, we'll skip next week then. No problem. Fantastic. That's great.
We'll all just go outside next week.
We'll just leave that and maybe suggest to Jenny a bit of maybe an alternative history tour then, if we're going to be talking about this sort of stuff then, if you've got lamp lighters and plane crashes at the same time. It's a thought. It's a thought. Anyway, leave that with you. Jenny, thank you so much for your time again. It's great to see you, and best of luck with the book and the audiobook, and hopefully we'll see you again. And if you are out there listening to Jenny's book is, just to recap with you, life stories and lessons of history's most extraordinary misfits under the moniker of Mavericks. Written and read by Jenny Draper. Out since the 11th of February, 8 hours, 21 minutes from Watkins Publishing, and many thanks to them for their support with today's episode as well. We'll see you again next week. We're on Blue Sky at Audiobook Show, Instagram with the same as well. Tell us what you're listening to with the hashtag Audiobook Club, and recommend what we should, and indeed everyone should be listening to. Also, until then, we'll see you next week. Ta-da!
Audiobook Club with Steve Phillips and Matthew Layton.